Have you ever walked through a season where everything felt broken, when all you could do was whisper, God, where are you? When the world around you seemed to fall apart and your prayers felt like echoes fading into silence? If that's where your heart is tonight, you're not alone, because this is where the psalmists once stood, in the ruins of their land, in the ache of unanswered prayers, in the tension between sorrow and faith. And yet, from that very place, a new song began to rise. Tonight, we step into that sacred space, the turning point between lament and praise, between ashes and awakening, between the cry of a weary soul and the melody of restoration. This is the closing chapter of our journey through the Psalms, Psalms 79 through 93, a path that leads us from devastation to delight, from broken walls to rebuilt worship, from a nation in ruin to hearts reborn in grace. Before we begin, take a deep breath. Let the noise of the day settle. Let the weight of worry slip off your shoulders. You are safe here. This is holy ground, the place where God still meets his people, not in perfection, but in their pain, not in triumph, but in trust. And in this quiet night, we will learn again what it means to be held, to be healed, and to be heard by the one who never forgets his covenant. The story begins in Psalm 79, a cry from the depths of destruction. Jerusalem lay in ruins, the people humiliated and helpless. The psalmist doesn't hide his anger or sorrow. He asks, "How long, O Lord? Will you be angry forever?" It's a raw prayer, not polished, not pretty, but honest. And honesty is the first step toward healing, because God can handle your pain. He's not afraid of your questions, your tears, your trembling faith. He meets you in them. Even when all seems lost, he's already writing a new beginning. Maybe you've had your own Psalm 79 moment, when life fell apart, when the future felt uncertain, when you weren't sure if hope could rise again. But just as he did for his people then, God can breathe new life into what's been broken, turning pain into purpose and sorrow into strength. Sleep in peace, beloved. Tomorrow belongs to grace. Then comes Psalms 80 through 85, a chorus of voices rising from the rubble, pleading, "Restore us, O God. Make your face shine upon us." It's a prayer that echoes through generations, a longing for mercy, for renewal, for God's presence again. The image shifts to a vine, planted, loved, but wounded. A vineyard once fruitful, now overrun. And yet the psalmist knows the same shepherd who planted it can prune and revive it again. Just as he tends his flock with care, he tends your soul too. Think of your life as that vine. Maybe you've felt cut back, trimmed in ways that hurt. But pruning is not punishment. It's preparation. Every season of loss can become the soil of new life. Every unanswered prayer can make room for deeper trust. God is not finished with you. He is restoring you, slowly, tenderly, faithfully. In Psalms 86 through 88, we see the most human side of faith. These are not songs of victory, but of vulnerability. Here, the psalmist prays as an individual. "My heart cries out to you all day long." And when no answer comes, he still chooses to keep praying. Sometimes the holiest thing you can do is simply not give up, to keep showing up before God, even in silence. Because silence doesn't mean absence. It often means intimacy. It's in the quiet that God begins to speak to your soul. If you've been walking through a dark night, hold on. Even in the valley, his shadow covers you. Under his wings, you will find refuge. And though tears may fall at night, joy will rise with the morning. Then comes Psalm 89, a song that wrestles with the mystery of God's promises. It remembers his covenant with David, a kingdom that seemed broken. And yet the psalmist holds to hope. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of your throne. Even when life feels unfair, God's justice still stands. Even when the world feels out of control, his kingdom is unshaken. The Psalms remind us that the true king still reigns, not just over nations, but over hearts. He rules not with force, but with faithfulness, not with fear, but with love. Look at your own life tonight. Where does he reign in you? Where do you still cling to control? When you release it, you'll discover that his reign brings peace, not pressure, freedom, not fear. The final movement, Psalms 90 through 93, is a symphony of worship. After all the tears and trials, the people lift their eyes again. Lord, you have been our dwelling place through all generations. The tone changes from crying to confidence, from despair to delight. They see God not as distant, but as their refuge, their rock, their forever home. Psalm 91 paints the picture. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And by Psalm 93, the journey is complete. The Lord reigns. He is robed in majesty. From ashes to glory, from chaos to calm. This is what happens when worship replaces worry. There was a season in my life when everything felt like Psalm 79. Dreams shattered, plans crumbled, and silence filled the air. I didn't have eloquent prayers, only sighs. But over time, I learned something sacred. God never wastes pain. He turned my lament into intimacy. He took the ruins of my self-reliance and rebuilt them on the foundation of his grace. Now, when I read these Psalms, I don't just see history. I see healing. I see a God who still restores vineyards, who still answers in whispers, who still turns mourning into music. Maybe that's what tonight is for you. A quiet invitation to release what's been lost and let God rebuild what still remains. A moment to remember that your story isn't finished. It's being rewritten by the hands of a faithful God. So as we enter this time of prayer, come just as you are. Bring your laments, your questions, your quiet hopes. Let his presence surround you like a gentle blanket of peace. Because the same God who heard the psalmist's cries still hears the sound of your heart tonight. And the same God who turned their sorrow into song is ready to bring melody from your silence, to write beauty into your broken places once again. There are moments when words fall short, when grief becomes too heavy to carry, and the only prayer we can offer is a breath, a whisper, a sigh. That's where the Psalms begin. In the ashes, in the aftermath, when everything seems lost, yet faith somehow refuses to die. The people of God stood in their ruins, surrounded by silence and shame, but still they believed redemption was possible. In Psalm 79, the city lay in ruins. The streets were filled with sorrow. The temple desecrated, the people broken beyond repair. And yet, from the middle of that devastation, a fragile voice rose up. Help us, O God of our salvation, for the glory of your name. It wasn't a prayer of triumph. It was a cry of surrender. Because sometimes faith doesn't roar. Sometimes it trembles. Sometimes it simply says, God, please, help us. And even then, he listens. Not always in the way we expect, but always in the way we need. Have you ever stood in a season like that? When your life felt scattered like broken walls, and you wondered if restoration was even possible? Take heart. The same God who rebuilt Jerusalem can rebuild what's been lost in you. He specializes in breathing beauty into dust. Then comes Psalm 80, and we hear a chorus echoing through generations. Restore us, O God. Make your face shine upon us, that we may be saved. Over and over, they cry out, not for comfort, not for riches, but for God's face, for his presence. Because when his presence returns, everything changes. The vineyard that was trampled begins to grow again. The shepherd returns to gather his flock. The barren heart blooms. Maybe tonight, that's your prayer too. Not for answers, but for his presence. Not for clarity, but for closeness. Because one glimpse of his face can turn despair into hope again. Psalm 81 reminds the people, and us, to listen to God's voice. Open your mouth wide, he says, and I will fill it. He longs to satisfy our hunger with sweetness from unexpected places. Honey from the rock. Yes, honey from the rock. Because even in hard places, God can release sweetness. In what feels dry and lifeless, he can still bring nourishment. If you are in a season of hardness, don't give up. The sweetness is coming, right from the very place you thought nothing good could grow. Then Psalm 82 speaks with power and conviction. God himself stands among the rulers and declares, defend the weak and the fatherless, uphold the cause of the poor and the oppressed. Even in lament, justice matters. Even in sorrow, righteousness still speaks. Because revival is never only personal, it's communal. God restores hearts so they can restore the world around them. And when enemies rise, Psalm 83 reminds us, no army is too great for the God who fights for his name. The psalmist pleads, let them know that you alone are most high. Sometimes God doesn't remove the storm. He reveals his strength through it. He shows the world who he is through how his people trust him in chaos. Then Psalm 84. Oh, what a change in tone. After all the cries and battles, we arrive at the gates of worship again. How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord of hosts. The soul that once cried for mercy now longs for communion. Even the sparrow finds a home. Even the swallow builds her nest near the altar. It's the song of one who's learned that being near God is better than being anywhere else. One day in your courts, the psalmist sings, is better than 1,000 elsewhere. He calls God his sun and shield, light for the path, protection for the soul. If you've been wandering, this is your invitation back home. The altar is still open. The presence is still waiting. God is still both sun and shield, the one who lights your darkness and guards your heart. And finally, Psalm 85 whispers the prayer of every heart longing for revival. Will you not revive us again, that your people may rejoice in you? Here mercy meets truth. Righteousness kisses peace, a divine embrace where heaven touches earth. This is what true restoration looks like, when the heart of man aligns again with the heart of God, when justice and grace walk hand in hand, when the world sees not religion, but redemption. From the nation's cry, we move into the heart of one man, David. Psalm 86 is the song of a humble soul. He prays, incline your ear, O Lord, and answer me, for I am poor and needy. He's not boasting of strength. He's confessing dependence. He's teaching us that prayer isn't about impressing God. It's about inviting him close. Unite my heart to fear your name, he says, because when the heart is divided, faith grows weak. But when the heart is united, even in pain, peace follows. In Psalm 87, the scene shifts again. It's a vision of Zion, God's chosen dwelling place. And in a prophetic glimpse, the psalmist declares that people from every nation will one day be counted as born there. Egypt, Babylon, Tyre, once enemies, will be citizens of God's city. It's a picture of grace breaking boundaries, of God rewriting identities, of a new covenant where all who believe can say, I was born in Zion. Maybe you felt like an outsider, like you don't belong in the story of faith. But in God's city, you do. You're written in the registry of grace. You're part of the family. Then comes Psalm 88, a psalm so dark it ends without a word of praise. The writer feels abandoned, trapped, unseen. He says, darkness is my closest friend. It's raw, it's painful, and yet it's still holy, because even in his despair, he is still praying, still calling out, still clinging. This psalm reminds us that faith isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet persistence to keep talking to God, even when you feel nothing. That, too, is worship. Because faith that survives the dark is faith that shines brightest in the dawn. If you're in a Psalm 88 season, hold on. Your story doesn't end in silence. Your prayer doesn't vanish in the void. God is closer than your breath, and though you can't feel him, he's carrying you through the night. Psalm 89 begins in celebration. I will sing of the mercies of the Lord forever. But halfway through, the tone changes. The promises seem broken. The kingdom has fallen. And the psalmist cries, Lord, where is your steadfast love? It's the tension between memory and mystery, between what God said and what life looks like. But even here, faith doesn't fail. The psalm ends with a defiant doxology. Blessed be the Lord forever. Because true faith isn't the absence of questions. It's worship in the midst of them. Even when the throne is empty, God is still king. Psalm 90 brings us to the prayer of Moses, a man who knew both the wilderness and the glory. He says, Lord, you have been our dwelling place through all generations. He compares our fleeting lives to grass, here today, gone tomorrow. And he prays, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. It's not a prayer of fear, but of focus. Because wisdom is born when we remember that life is short, but God's mercy is eternal. When we stop chasing temporary things and start living with eternal purpose. Psalm 91 rises like a mountain peak, a psalm of protection, confidence, and peace. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. This isn't just poetry, it's a promise that even when the world shakes, you are safe under his wings. No evil can touch what's hidden in his presence. He commands his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. If fear has followed you through the night, let this truth anchor you. You are covered. You are kept. You are not alone. Then Psalm 92, a song for morning and night. It is good to give thanks to the Lord, it begins, to declare his loving kindness in the morning and his faithfulness by night. Evening and morning, gratitude wraps around the day. The psalmist compares the righteous to palm trees and cedars, deeply rooted, evergreen, flourishing in every season. They will still bear fruit in old age, because a life planted in God never withers. Even when outward strength fades, the soul remains strong. Maybe that's your story. You've weathered storms, but your roots still run deep. You've seen loss, but still found reasons to praise. That's the quiet miracle of faith. It grows stronger in time. And finally, Psalm 93, a declaration so majestic it could end the journey itself. The Lord reigns. He is robed in majesty. The floods have lifted up their voice, but mightier than the thunder of many waters is the Lord on high. Even when chaos roars, his throne remains unshaken. His rule is eternal. His word is firm, and his love unmovable. This is where the Psalms lead us, to the throne, to the unchanging King who turns lament into praise and brokenness into beauty. When I read these Psalms, I think of my own seasons of ruin and rebuilding. There was a time I felt like Jerusalem after the fire. Everything familiar gone, everything I trusted shaken. I prayed not with confidence, but with exhaustion. But slowly, through whispered prayers and weary faith, God began to restore me, not by fixing everything, but by changing me. He taught me to see honey in the rock, to find sweetness even in sorrow. He showed me that revival isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, like the slow healing of a heart learning to trust again. Now when I whisper, "Restore me, O God," I don't mean, "Give me what I lost." I mean, "Make me whole again in you." Because the greatest miracle is not when life returns to normal, but when faith returns to life. Maybe tonight, that's your story too. You've walked through pain, but you're still here. You've cried out in darkness, but you're still praying. And that means hope is still alive. Because the same God who lifted his people from ashes is lifting you now. The same God who turned their lament into song will teach your heart to sing again. So as we move into prayer tonight, let your soul finally breathe. Set down every burden you've been carrying. Let the shepherd lift what your shoulders can no longer bear. Let the King take his rightful place within your heart once more. Because this journey, from lament to praise, isn't just an ancient story written in Scripture. It's the story God is still writing in you. A story of grace rising from the ruins, of broken hearts becoming whole again, of ashes giving way to glory. And when you look back on your life, you may begin to see it too. How every valley, every heartbreak, every unanswered prayer was leading you towards something sacred. That's the quiet truth the Psalms reveal. Even when the pages of your story feel torn, God is still writing redemption between the lines. From Psalm 79 to 93, we've traveled through ashes and altars, through cries of sorrow and songs of triumph. We've watched the people of God weep over devastation, plead for renewal, and rise again to proclaim, "The Lord reigns, he is clothed in majesty." Because though kingdoms fall and history trembles, his throne remains unshaken, eternal, and full of mercy. Let that truth settle deep in your spirit tonight. When the world feels unstable, when your plans collapse, when fear whispers that you've been forgotten, remember this: you serve a God who cannot be dethroned. His love is not seasonal. His promises don't expire, and his presence never fades with the changing of your circumstances. From Psalm 79, we saw the people broken, their city in ruins, their hope fading. Yet even there, they cried out, "Help us, O God of our salvation, for the glory of your name." It's a reminder that God's faithfulness isn't limited by our failures. Even when the world burns around us, he stays. Even when we lose our way, he finds us. Maybe you've walked through a season like that, when prayers turned into sighs and faith felt fragile. But here's the good news. The same God who stood among the ruins of Jerusalem is standing with you tonight. He doesn't abandon you in your wreckage. He rebuilds you from within, stone by stone, tear by tear, grace upon grace. In Psalm 80, the refrain echoes again and again. Restore us, O God. Make your face shine upon us, that we may be saved. It's more than a plea. It's a longing for his nearness. Because restoration isn't about what we get back. It's about who we return to. When his face shines upon you, darkness has to flee. Fear loses its grip. Peace becomes possible again. Maybe tonight you're not asking for answers. You're just asking for his light. Then this is your prayer. Lord, make your face shine on me again. Even if your heart feels dim, he is still the sun that never sets. Even when your world feels small, he still fills it with wonder. Then we came to Psalm 91, the resting place for weary souls. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. There's something powerful about that word, abide. It means to stay, to remain, to rest. You don't have to strive for safety. You just have to stay near him. Because under his wings, no weapon can prevail. No fear can destroy you. No storm can drown you. So as you lay down tonight, imagine yourself resting under that divine shadow. Imagine his hand covering your heart, his angels standing guard around your home. Slay his peace, wrapping you like a warm blanket in the night. Even as you sleep, he sings over you. Even as you rest, he works. By the time we reach Psalms 89 through 93, the focus shifts from pain to praise, from pleading to proclaiming. The Lord reigns, they sing. Though the floods lift up their voice, though the waters roar, you are mightier than the waves. That's what faith sounds like after walking through fire. It's not naive. It's proven. It's the song of someone who's seen chaos, but still believes in the crown. Our faith is not fragile because our God is not fragile. Empires crumble, nations rise and fall, but his kingdom stands forever. And in that kingdom, there is peace that the world cannot take, joy that the night cannot steal, and hope that outlasts the grave. When everything else feels uncertain, fix your eyes on the eternal. The same hands that formed the mountains are the hands holding you. The same voice that calmed the seas is the one speaking peace to your soul. Looking back across these psalms, we can trace a sacred rhythm. From collective cries to personal prayers, from despair to devotion, from human weakness to divine strength. We've seen that faith isn't the absence of lament, it's worship that rises through it. We've learned that revival begins not in crowds, but in hearts. And we've discovered that no matter how dark the night, morning always comes for those who wait on God. So what do we take from this journey? We take courage, because the story isn't over. We take peace, because the King still reigns. And we take faith, because even when life shakes, he remains unshaken. There was a season when my own faith felt fragile, when I prayed Psalm 79 more than I sang Psalm 93. I knew what it meant to say, Lord, help me, for I am broken. I knew what it felt like to sit in silence, to wonder if God still heard. But slowly, through quiet mornings and tearful nights, he began to whisper again, not through thunder, but through tenderness, not through explanation, but through presence. And I realized something profound. Faith is not built on clarity. It's built on communion. It's not about knowing the plan. It's about knowing the one who holds it. Now, when I read, the Lord reigns, he is clothed in majesty, I don't just hear poetry, I hear memory. I hear every moment he carried me when I thought I couldn't go on. I hear every answered prayer that came wrapped in patience, every mercy that met me in the mess. And I know He reigns still over my heart, over my home, over every tomorrow I cannot yet see. So, as this night unfolds, take a moment to reflect. What part of your story needs restoring? Where do you need to whisper, Lord, make your face shine upon me again? Type your prayer in the comments below, not for attention, but as an act of faith. Because when we share our prayers, we share our hope. And when one voice trembles in the dark, 1,000 more rise in response. If this journey through the Psalms has spoken to your heart, I invite you to stay with us. Subscribe, share, or simply sit in stillness for a moment longer. Let this space be your sanctuary, a place where faith grows quietly and peace feels near. If this prayer has spoken to your heart tonight, let it linger a little longer. Save it for tomorrow's quiet time. Share it with someone who needs peace, and let God continue writing the next page of your story. And now, as we close this chapter, may the words of the psalmist echo through your night. May your lament turn to praise. May your fears give way to faith. May your heart remember that even when the earth quakes and the waters roar, God is still on the throne. He is your refuge and your strength, your shepherd and your song. He is your peace in the storm, your light in the valley, your anchor in the waves. So rest, beloved soul. You are safe beneath His wings. You are seen by the God who never sleeps. And you are loved deeply, eternally, completely, by the one whose reign has no end. The night may be long, but joy is already on its way. For the same God who reigned in the Psalms still reigns tonight, and He reigns in you.